Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell, and the opposition leader reflecting on his behaviour 15 years ago today in Parliament.
Well, he's seen the light, hasn't he? Tell me this has nothing to do with the Aston by-election, which people around this place were saying to me today, questioning whether it will be before Easter or after Easter. They think it'll be around April. But I do wonder about this because this is quite the turnaround now. I think Peter Dutton would tell people, as he did in the speech, this is similar to what I've said before, but I think this went much further. And the context of it, the 15th anniversary, saying it in the Parliament. I mean, he went as far as to say Kevin Rudd is right. I never thought I'd hear those words uttered from Peter Dutton's lips. Have a listen to this.
I want to speak directly to those in the gallery today and further afield who are part of the stolen generation and those who are descendants or are connected to the issue, and I want to say in an unscripted way, I apologise for my actions, and the Prime Minister's frequently able to point it out that I didn't attend the chamber for the apology 15 years ago. I've apologised for that in the past, and I repeat that apology again today. I failed to grasp at the time the symbolic significance to the stolen generation of the apology. It was right for Prime Minister Rudd to make the apology in 2008. It's right that we recognise the anniversary today. In his historic speech, Prime Minister Rudd said, "Symbolism is important, but unless the great symbolism of reconciliation is accompanied by an even greater substance, it is little more than a clanging gong." It's not sentiment that makes history, it's our actions that make history.
Andrew, that statement, a very significant comment from Peter Dutton. He might have said similar things in newspaper interviews or maybe the odd TV interview, but doing it on the floor of Parliament as opposition leader in a reply to the Prime Minister's statement on the 15th anniversary of the apology, that has a great deal of significance, much more than, say, a remark here or there on a chat show.
Or his first presser as opposition leader did a bit of that, but then explain why he came to the conclusion he did. Well, I think you've got to ask yourself, how often do these guys say that they're wrong? How often do they say they're wrong in the Parliament so explicitly? And so it really is a change of tack, but it opens him up to attacks if he were to oppose the Voice now, because Albanese can just say, well, hang on, you thought sorry was a bad idea. I mean, I read a story that he actually considered quitting the shadow ministry over it. We know Brendan Nelson went with it. He stayed out of the Parliament on it. He was one of only a few MPs to do that. Couldn't Albanese say, well, you were wrong on that, you'll be wrong on this, and in 15 years you'll be giving the same speech? So I'll tell you one thing it did make me think today. There's more chance today than there was yesterday Peter Dutton will end up supporting the Voice. I mean, we'll see. He's really got two different constituencies in the Liberal supporting or potentially Liberal supporting area to deal with there. But I think it was a significant statement, a significant shift.
Yeah, and the Prime Minister also with a, at times, emotional address to Parliament today.
Yeah, there's no doubt he became emotional as he spoke about Senator Pat Dodson and the fact he was nearly a member of the stolen generation.
I look to my dear friend, Minister Burney, who was a young child when it was decided her people were worth counting as Australians. And I look to Senator Patrick Dodson, as a boy in Katherine, he hid in the long grass when the welfare officers and the police came to take his mates away. Think about that. What a terrifying moment for a child. What a formative moment in a life.
The Prime Minister in the House of Representatives now. Andrew, we discussed this earlier, but quite a similar parallel between the comments Peter Dutton made in 2008, 9, 10, around that period, and now the comments he said in relation to The Voice. It's relevant to what you were saying before about recognising he'd made a mistake 15 years ago and potentially copying the same suggestion this time, warnings, don't make the same mistake.
Well, he said before, let's do something practical, not symbolic. And yet he was admitting today something symbolic was significant. So, you know, he could quibble about the voice is different to sorry, but there's an argument it could be viewed as the same thing. And I looked at the turn of the century when I was in this gallery, and John Howard was resisting so hard the apology. He ended up doing a statement of regret, but he kept saying practical reconciliation, things that make a difference on the ground. This is very similar to the language that Peter Dutton used here in 2010 to explain why he didn't support the apology to the stolen generation, and to the language that he's been using this year and last about the voice, pointing out quite rightly and putting pressure on the government, which was good in terms of the Alice Springs issue and fixing things up there, or attempting to. But again, it's that argument, well, will this thing really make a difference? And they're very similar stances. He only really came off it to a great degree today, I felt. Here's Peter Dutton in 2010, followed by Peter Dutton last year.
I regarded it as something which was not going to deliver tangible outcomes to kids who are being raped and tortured in communities in the 21st century. Now, if I thought for a moment that it was going to deliver positive outcomes to those kids, to their families, to those communities, then I would support it in a heartbeat. But I thought it distracted us from that. So, Mr Speaker, Australians do have a right to know what they will be voting for. Australians deserve to know whether a constitutionally enshrined voice to Parliament will be able to deliver practical outcomes in Indigenous communities, and how quickly that can take place.